بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نرحب بالإخوة الزملاء والأخوات الزميلات في شؤون الطالبات في لقاء اليوم حوار الأربعاء مع سعادة أخانا الدكتور كليم عالم، والذي سوف يكون بعنوان United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, and maybe he will answer if this goal is it really goal or just political game. أترككم مع الدكتور كليم في هذا الحوار الشيق إن شاء الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. It's United Nations Eurasian approach. Eurasian means half-hearted approach. It's a Christian term where it's the name of a city in present-day Turkey. It was under the Roman Empire, where it's also the name is mentioned in the Bible. Chapter 3, where Saint Paul was not able to understand whether they have converted or they have not. They were confused. Again? No, I wouldn't say. But it was because of this the word has emerged. Now we're going to. It has come about from 1992 with the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development at Brazil. The declaration was called Agenda 21. Now this Agenda 21 is referring to 21st century. Yes. So they put Agenda 21 at first. When I read Agenda 21, I thought there must be Agenda 20 or the other, but then it is the 21st century. Broadly, it had just 3 goals in, you can say, 32 targets. I just summarized the preamble of the Agenda 21, and it was humanity stands confront with the perpetuation of disparities between and within the nations, a worsening of the poverty, hunger, ill health, and illiteracy, and continuing deterioration of the ecosystem. Integration of environment and development will lead to the fulfillment of the basic needs, improving living standards for all, better protected and managed ecosystem, and safer, more prosperous future. No nation can achieve this on its own, but together we can in a global partnership for sustainable development. This global partnership must take a balanced, integrated approach to the environment and development questions. Agenda 21 addresses the pressing problems of today and also aims to preparing the world for the challenges of the next century. United Nations system has a key role to play. Other international, regional, and sub-regional non-governmental organizations also called upon to contribute to this effort. The development of environmental objectives of the Agenda 21 will require substantial flow of new additional financial resources to developing countries to accelerate the sustainable development. In implementation of the relevant programs, areas identified by Agenda 21 especially, attention should be given to particular circumstances facing the economies in transition. The program area of that constitute Agenda 21 are described in terms of the basis for action, objectives, activities, and means of implementation. This process marks the beginning of a new global partnership for sustainable development. Almost similar points are mentioned in MDG and SDG also. The next was Millennium Development Goals. In September of year 2000, leaders of 189 countries met in the United Nations endorsing the Millennium Declaration, a commitment to work together to build a safer and more prosperous, equitable world. The declaration was translated into a roadmap setting out 8 time-bound measurable goals to be reached by 2015, known as the Millennium Development Goals, namely eradication of extreme poverty and hunger, reduce by half proportion of the people whose income is less than $1 a day, achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all, including women and young people. The other 7 points are achieving universal primary education, promote gender equality, and empower women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability, develop a global partnership for development. This was the logo. But then in 2015, when MDG target was, then the United Nations came up with a Sustainable Development Goal called SDG. And those who were working on the MDG, they proposed to make 10 points and extend it by 10 years. But then the negotiations which was going on, they came up with 17 goals, very good, one by one. The next SDG, this was SDG in 2015. Let's see what he says about Millennium Development Goal. The MDG helped to lift more than 1 billion people out of extreme poverty, to make inroad against hunger, to enable more girls to attend school than ever before, and to protect our planet. Yet all the remarkable gains, I am keenly aware that inequalities persist and that the progress has been uneven. The world's poor remain overwhelmingly concentrated in some parts of the world. But further progress will require an unswerving political will and collective long-term effort. We need to tackle root causes and do more to integrate the economic, social, environmental dimensions of the sustainable development. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goal for 2030 has come a long way indeed. It was an outcome of the summit transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. To achieve this comprehensive agreement from United Nations members, a long-drawn negotiation took place that gave the world 17 goals with 169 targets, 230 indicators, to which 193 countries are signatory. Perhaps after United Nations Charter in 1945, this is one of the most comprehensive agreements. Agreed on 27 September 2015. All of these goals are important and useful. We will quickly go through the objectives of these goals. I will skip the targets. Preamble: this agenda is a plan of action for the people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace in larger freedom. We recognize that the eradication of poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and indispensable requirement for sustainable development. We are determined to take the bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path. They are integrated and indivisible and balanced. The 3 dimensions of sustainable development: the economic, social, and environmental. The goals and targets will stimulate action over the next 15 years in areas of critical importance for humans and planet. People, we are determined to end poverty, hunger, environment. I will skip this page. go into the first goal is end poverty in all its forms everywhere. It's an ambitious goal. In 2000, the world committed to halving the number of people living in extreme poverty by the year 2015. And this goal was, however, more than 800 people around the world still live on less than 1.25 a day. That's about equivalent of the entire population of Europe living in extreme poverty. Now it's time to build on what we learned and to end poverty altogether. These are the targets. Zero hunger. End hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. The SDG claims in the past 20 years, hunger has dropped by almost half. Many countries that used to suffer from famine and hunger can now meet the nutritional needs of their most vulnerable people. It is incredible accomplishment. Now we can go further and end hunger, malnutrition once and for all. That means doing things such as promoting sustainable agriculture and supporting small farmers. It's a tall order, but for the sake of nearly 1 out of every 9 people on the earth who go to bed hungry every night, we have got to try to imagine a world where everyone has access to sufficient and nutritious food all year round. Together we can make that a reality by 2030. Like Millennium Development Goal, SDG could have combined extreme poverty and hunger, as both are normally go together. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. We all know the importance of it to be a good health. Our health affects everything from how much we enjoy life to what work we can perform, and that's why there is a goal to make sure everyone has health coverage and access to safe and effective medicine and vaccines. In the 25 years before the SDGs, we made a big stride. Preventable child deaths dropped by more than half. The maternal mortality went down by almost as much and yet some other number remains tragically high, like the fact that 6 million children die every year before their 5th birthday, or that AIDS is leading cause of death for adults in sub-Saharan Africa. We have the means to turn around and make good health more than just a wish. As per the AIDS, can you and boldly think of banning or reducing brothels and homosexuality? That they know the ills of it. Quality education. The fourth goal, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunity for all. First, the bad news on education. Poverty, armed conflict and other emergencies keep many kids around the world out of school. In fact, the kids from poorest households are 4 times more likely to be out of school than those of the richest household. Now, for some good news, since 2000, there has been enormous progress on the goal to provide primary education to all the children worldwide. The total enrollment rate in the developing regions has reached 91%. By measures in any school, that's a good grade. Now, let's get an even better grade for all kids and achieve the goal of universal primary and secondary education, affordable vocational training, access to higher education and more. Gender equality. achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls. We can celebrate the great progress the world has made in becoming more prosperous and fair, but there is a shadow to the celebration. In just about every way, women and girls lag behind. There are still gross inequalities in work and wages. Lots of unpaid women work, such as child care, domestic work, and discrimination in public decision making. But there are grounds for hope. More girls are in school now compared to 2000. Most regions have reached gender parity in primary schools. The percentage of women getting paid for their work is on rise. The Sustainable Development Goals aims to build on these achievements to ensure that there is end to discrimination against women and girls everywhere. Maybe gender right would be a preferred agenda. Clean water and sanitation. Ensure availability of sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Everyone on the earth should have access to safe and affordable drinking water. That's the goal for 2030. While many people take clean drinking water and sanitation for granted, many others don't. Water scarcity affects more than 40% of the people around the world, and that number is projected to go even higher. As a result, for climate change, if we continue the path we are on, the 2050, at least 1 in 4 people are likely to be affected by recurring water shortages, but we can take a new path. More international cooperation for protecting wetlands and rivers, sharing water treatment technologies that lead to accomplishing this goal. Affordable and clean energy. Ensure access to affordable, reliable and sustainable modern energy for all. Between 1990 and 2010, number of people with access to electricity increased by 1.7 billion. That's progress to be proud of. And yet, as the world's population continues to rise, still more people will need cheap energy to light their homes and streets, use phones and computers, and do their everyday business. How we get that energy is the issue. Fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions are making drastic changes in the climate, leading to big problems on every continent. Instead, we can become more energy efficient and invest in clean energy. Sources such as solar and wind, that way we will meet electricity needs and protect the environment. Now, for this we need a transfer of technology. Affordable cost should clearly be defined. It should be better than the favorable and mutual agreement agreed as mentioned in 17.7. They're talking about these technologies, but they have not put a specific of how they will be. If it is going to be very expensive, not a developing country or least developed countries would go for it. Decent work and economic growth. Promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. An important part of the economic growth is that people have jobs that pay enough to support themselves and their families. The good news is that the middle class is growing worldwide, almost tripling in size in developing countries in the last 25 years to more than a third of the population. But today, job growth is not keeping pace with the growing labor force. Things don't have to be that way. We can promote policies that encourage entrepreneurship and job creation. We can eradicate forced labor, slavery and human trafficking. And in the end, we can achieve the goals of decent work for all women and men by 2030. The problem is with the automation and net technologies, to me, retaining the existing job is itself a challenge today. Creating a new job is a bigger challenge for the world. Maybe the world has to relook at where they can use the labor-intensive work wherever it is possible. Yes. Industry, innovation and infrastructure. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Technological progress helps us to address the bigger global challenge, such as creating jobs and becoming more energy efficient. For example, the world is becoming ever more interconnected. The prosperous thanks to the internet. The more connected we are, the more we can all benefit from the wisdom and contribution of the people everywhere on earth. And yet, 4 billion people have no way of getting online. The vast majority of them in developing countries. The more we invest in innovation and infrastructure, the better off we will all be. Bridging the digital divide, promoting sustainable industries, and investing in scientific research and innovation are all important ways of facilitate sustainable development. Reduce inequalities. Reducing inequalities within and among countries. It's an old story, the rich get richer and poor get poorer. The divide has never been starker. We can and must adopt policies that create opportunities for everyone, regardless of who they are or where they came from. Income inequalities is a global problem that requires a global solution. That means improving regulation of financial markets and institutions, sending development aid where it must be needed, and helping people migrate safely so they can pursue opportunities. Together we can change the direction of the older story of inequalities. To me, perhaps income inequalities may not be a global, rather a local problem requiring a very local solution. Every nation has its own different problems. Facilitating migration is not the best way out, rather bringing jobs to them is more important. Concentration of wealth at a few locations is not a good treaty. Sustainable cities and communities. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. If you are, like most people, you live in a city, more than half of the world population now lives in cities. And that figure will go to about 2/3 of the humanity. By the year 2050, cities are getting bigger. In 1990, there were 10 megacities with 10 million inhabitants or more. In 2014, there were 28 megacities, home to 453 million people. Incredible. A lot of people love cities. They are centers of culture and business and life. The thing is, they are all also often centers for extreme poverty. To make cities sustainable for all, we can create good, affordable public housing. We can upgrade slum settlements, we can invest in public transport, create green spaces, and get broader range of people involved in urban planning decisions. That way we can keep things we love about cities and change the things we don't. When cities get bigger, I think perhaps laying foundation for newer cities would be a better. It will generate jobs and be administratively convenient. Responsible consumption and production. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Some people use a lot of stuff and some people use very little. In fact, a big share of the world population is consuming too little to meet even their basic needs. Instead, we can have a world where everybody gets what they need to survive and thrive. And we can consume in a way that preserves our natural resources so that our children can enjoy them. and their children after that. The hard part is how to achieve that goal. We can manage our natural resources more efficiently and dispose of toxic waste better. Cut per capita food waste in half globally, get businesses and consumers to reduce and recycle waste, and help countries that have typically not consumed a lot to move towards more responsible consumption patterns. Perhaps I think it's time to look at the theory of economies of scale. Climate action. Take urgent action to combat climate change for its impact. There is a separate agreement, which is the latest one was the Paris agreement, from which the US has walked out now. Every country in the world is seeing a drastic effect of the climate change, some more than the other. The annual losses just from the earthquake, tsunami, tropical cyclone, and flooding amounts to hundreds of billions of dollars. We can reduce the loss of the life and property by helping more vulnerable regions such as landlocked countries and island states become more resilient. It is still possible with the political will and technological measures to limit the increase in global means temperature to 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and thus avoid the worst effect of climate change. The Sustainable Development Goals lay out way for countries to work together to meet this urgent challenge. Life below the water. Conserve sustainable use of ocean, sea, marine resources, and sustainable development. The oceans make human life possible. Their temperature, their chemistry, their currents, their life forms. For one thing, more than 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal diversity for their livelihood. But today we are seeing nearly a third of the world fish stocks overexploited. That's not a sustainable way of life. Even people who live nowhere near the oceans can't live without it. Oceans absorb about 30% of the carbon dioxide that humans produce. But we are producing more than carbon dioxide than ever before. And that makes the oceans more acidic. 26% more since the start of the Industrial Revolution. Our trash doesn't help either. 13,000 pieces of plastic litter on every square kilometer of the ocean. Sounds bad? Don't destroy the Sustainable Development Goal indicates target for managing and protecting the life below water. Now, I think this is now the life below the water is the SDG should have, or the world should have empowered the United Nations to take care of the international waters, because that's where most of the waste dumping takes place. Even the nuclear waste was until 2012 being dumped in the sea. As soon as it comes to the international water, nobody is responsible. Everyone is free. Yesterday, before yesterday, there was a complaint in the court of Italy. A British girl was raped in international water, and they said we cannot do anything since the international water doesn't come under our jurisdiction. So there has to be some mechanism that the crime on the international waters have to be reduced, or they should be punished. The SDGs doesn't talk about how they can do that. Life on land. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. Sustainably manage forest, combat the desertification, and halt reverse land degradation and halt biodiversity loss. Humans and other animals rely on other forms of life on land for food, clean air, clean water, and means of combating climate change. Plant life makes up to 80% of the human diet. Forests, which cover 30% of the Earth's surface, help keep the air and water clean, and the Earth's climate is in balance. That's not to mention they are home to millions of animal species, but the land and life on it are in trouble. Arable land is disappearing 30 to 35 times faster than it has historically. Deserts are spreading, animal breeds are going extinct. We can turn these trends around. Fortunately, the Sustainable Development Goals aims at to conserve and restore the use of terrestrial ecosystems such as the forest, wetland, dry land, and mountains by 2030. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions for all. How can a country develop? Can people eat and teach and learn and work and raise families without peace? And how can a country have a peace without justice, without human rights, without government based on the rule of law? Some parts of the world enjoy relative peace and justice and may come to take it for granted. Other parts seems to be plagued by the armed conflict, crime, torture, and exploitation, all of which hinders their development. The goal of peace and justice is for all countries to strive towards sustainable development goals. Aims to reduce all forms of violence and propose that the governments and communities find lasting solution to the conflict and insecurity. That means strengthening the rule of law, reducing the flow of illicit arms, and bringing developing countries more into the center of institutions of global governance. Partnership for the goals. Strengthen the means of implementation, revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Sustainable development goals are pretty big to-do list. In fact, it is so big you may just want to throw your hands up in the air and say forget it. Can't be done, why even try? But we have a lot going for us. The world is more interconnected today than ever before. Thanks to internet, travel, and global institutions, there is a growing consensus about the need to work together to stop climate change and sustainable development goals. Are no small matter either. 193 countries agreed to these goals. Pretty incredible. 193 countries agreeing on anything. The final goal lays out the way for nations to work together to achieve all their goals. Now we go to our, if you look from the Islamic perspective, none of this it is in violation of Sharia, Maqasid Sharia or issues. We have been talking for a very long time about poverty. We are taught to pray, "Oh Allah, I seek refuge from poverty and torment of the grave." We are also taught to seek the from hunger, for it is an evil bedfellow, and I seek refuge in the form of treasury. And there are some more hadiths on different aspects of the sustainable goals. These are the 17 goals. Now the question is why I feel that it is a Laodicean approach. Some of the points while presenting the 17 points I've been mentioning it, but now in order to understand, we have to go to the preamble of the United Nations Charter. The main purpose of this whole United Nations was to save succeeding generation from scourge of the war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights and dignity and worth of human person in equal rights of men and women and the nations large and small, to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from the treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standard of life in larger freedom. But did UN fail in its primary objective? I think yes. The wars we have seen continuously, and there are so many still going on. We have been seeing the use of the root causes should be addressed, whereas most of the treatment which is being proposed is not going into much deeper basic requirements. In medicine, the two popular ones are called allopathic and homeopathic medicine. While allopathic medicine attempts to alleviate the symptoms of the disease by attacking or affecting the natural defense. The allopathic medicines normally they treat the symptoms, while homeopathic they go for the roots of the problem. And I think the current SDG is following a method of allopathic medicine rather than going to the root causes. The problem is of weapon in the hands of those who are not supposed to hold. Illicit weapon has to be stopped. Wars and internal conflicts stands to ruin all that SDG wants to stand for. It completely destroys nations. By exporting these weapons legally or otherwise, surely some are making profit. UNSDG had a good opportunity to set a goal and agenda for weapon control. These are the 10 largest exporters of weapons around the world. SDG needed to put a target on eradicating illicit weapon supply at least by half by 2030, but it has only a few words. In 16.4, it says that by 2030 significantly reduce illicit financial and arms flows, strengthening, recover and return of stolen assets and combat all forms of organized crimes. That's it. It needs to have a tracing system embedded in the weapons so that it can be traced back. Traceability is important to identify the root state or groups. Peace is when the nations develop and progress, even the poorest ones. It's not the UN did not propose it for it, it did, but it doesn't have the required teeth to implement it. Mr. Percy Parley writes the following on the RAND blog. Currently there are no mandatory global accepted standards that regulate firearms marking. This means that the practice vary widely among different producers and national users. The United Nations is leading the promotion of the global arms control measuring which aims to combat illicit arms trafficking through more rigorous marking record keeping and tracing practices. For example, United Nations International Tracing Instrument includes general indications on the physical characteristics of the marking. These should be placed on an exposed surface conspicuous without the need for technical aids or tools to see them. Easily recognizable and readable and durable. These markings should also include the name of the manufacturer, the country or of the manufacturer and serial number or other unique marking. The weapon type, model and caliber are encouraged but have not been deemed a necessary requirement. Now, this is the problem. The UN must require manufacturers to engrave by using laser marking. They must put traceable numbers in the inner cover and as well as on the outer body. The other area could have been a better addressed is the control of intoxicant, especially alcohol or alcoholism. Alcohol is social evil. Alcoholism has a medical cost. All nations know the problem and issues related to alcoholism, but yet it could not consider for reduced use or total elimination. The SDG again has just a few words for it. In 3.5, strengthen the prevention of treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drugs and drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. What was needed is to put a target how much it needs to see it reduced. Currently, alcohol consumption is prohibited in these countries: Afghanistan, where 100% ban is there; Bangladesh, which is excluding non-Muslims; Brunei, full ban; India has a few states which has banned consumption of alcohol; Indonesia, Iran, it excludes non-Muslims; Kuwait, Libya, and so on. In the past, even the United Nations, the United States, alcohol was prohibited. Canada had a prohibition. Russia, Iceland, Iraq, recently they have removed the ban and they have put 200% tax on alcohol. Norway, Hungary, Finland, they all had prohibited once upon a time. Prohibition of alcohol is not just due to religion, but it is for the public good and health. If we take the example of US during the 19th century, alcoholism, family violence and saloon-based political corruption prompted prohibition led by state Protestants to end alcoholism, beverage trade, to cure ill society. It became a law known as the Volstead Act, set down the rules for enforcing the federal ban on and defined the types of alcoholic beverages that are prohibited. For example, religious use of the wine was allowed. Private ownership and consumption of alcohol were not made illegal under the federal law, but local laws were stricter in many areas, with some states banning possession outright. Rates of the result of the banning was rate of the liver, I do not pronounce this, cirrhosis fell by 50%. Early in the prohibition recovered promptly after it was repealed in 1993. During the prohibited area, rates of absenteeism decreased from 10% to 3%. Alcohol consumption declined dramatically during the prohibition. It was reduced from 29.5% of 100,000 in 1911 to 10.7. The mental cases also came down from 10 to 4.7%. Arrest for public drunkenness declined by 50%. And for population of the whole, the best estimate that the alcohol declined by 30 to 50%. Prohibition ended with the ratification of the 21st Amendment, which repealed the 18th Amendment on December 5, 1933. Some states continued statewide prohibition, marking one of the last stages of the so-called progressive era. But the primary reason for repealing the act was loss of taxable revenue for the government. And it is true everywhere. The reason why the alcohol, though they know it is harmful, but because it is a good income for the government, they don't want to prohibit it. The last point would be debt issue. Though there are a few more issues like HIV, transfer technology, as I said, I will just talk on the three, and the debt is my last point. Once again, the SDG failed to explain the targets clearly. It has just the following to offer. 17.4, assist developing countries in attaining long-term debt sustainability through coordinated policies aimed at fostering debt financing, debt relief and debt restructuring as appropriate, and address the external debts of highly indebted poor countries to reduce the debt distress. I would have appreciated if it would set a specific target for achieving or lowering the debts, eliminating all the interests on the principal amount of all LDCs, perhaps interest-free funds to meet the future SDG requirements like implementation of solar and wind energy, like transfer of technology for water treatments and etc. The large chunk of the income from the developing countries and LDCs goes into serving the interest on borrowings. Though SDG 2030 is well intended but without clear task and target, along with the implementation of mechanism of gun control and interest-free debt, the whole exercise for poor and specifically the LDC would remain logician. The insincerity of the UN can be seen in the next slide. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was given the Champion of the Earth in 2018. In the 2018 Environmental Performance Index, they showed India, in 2016 India was ranked 144. It went down to 177 and the Prime Minister is being awarded Champion of the Earth. Is that a sincere one in their effort? Some of the overlaps which I felt is, they could have been just like MDG, they could have been combined in this format, where poverty and hunger could have been put in one goal, with health and clean water, sanitation maybe in another, and affordable clean energy, industry, innovation, sustainable cities could have been put together. So the targets are easier to achieve and meet. Climate changes, climate action, life on earth, life below water could have been put together to see achievable goals, targets. Thank you.
Thank you for this lecture. May I start with receiving questions and comments?
Your phone's mobile data is turned off, so I can't help you with that at the moment.
Thank you. Receiving questions and comments from lady sections. Dr. Maha?
We don't have any question right now.
في أي سؤال من جهتكم؟
No.
Okay, so
شكرا.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I congratulate Dr. Ilimala for this nice, interesting presentation. Actually, a question, I think this SDG was came in picture or discussed many years before. which year?
It started in September 2015, the declaration was.
Three years back. Eh?
The declaration.
So why did you take such a long time to present on this topic?
We still have 2030 to achieve that.
Anyway, actually, this United Nations proposal or decision put before us as Muslim many questions. No doubt, most of goals are supported by Islam also. The first question is, which comes to our mind, why Muslim fail to present such programs or to think at this level? Why it was left to some other groups to come forward? I think they have filled a vacuum which was created by Muslims. Muslim as a leader of the world at one time, Muslims having the message of mercy for the whole mankind, it was their duty to come forward and present these kind of things for the whole world. But actually we have we forgot our message, or in every field, whether literacy or equality or justice, so many values which he just put behind, and that was the reason that as it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, means that if you not come forward, do not do these things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise some other nations for this kind of things. So that was, I think, one of the reasons that they filled this vacuum. But of course, since majority of them, or can say those who are leaders of this forum, they are having no divine message. Therefore, they are not doing full justice. And as Dr. Karim mentioned that there are low positions in their goals and objectives and efforts. One of my friends used to say in India that these Westerns are very good, very ethical, very helpful, but so far their interest is not clash. If their interest is clash, then no ethics, no value, no justice, no mercy, nothing else. And that we see every day in our life. Dr. Karim also presented that the superpower at this time always said that, oh, this is not in this clashes interest. This is in every case. If you want to kill you, that this is in interest of America. Otherwise, you will be in danger. This is justice. So, as you know, they are a champion of democracy, but at the highest level of organizations, what is justice? One person can just veto and allow injustice continue. This kind of thing we always see. So actually, we need, unfortunately, we don't have any research and development and such a forum among the Muslims to study them critically and to present better alternative, or at least present the Islamic viewpoint. Because I'll just say, clearly that some of the goals are not correct. For example, gender equality, and in some cases, or what it means gender equality. We should present the Islamic point of view. There are certain natural differences that has to be kept in mind, and similarly we have to not blindly support their goals. We have to critically examine them, and of course we have to be first proof that we are aware of the divine message, and by our goals, our objectives, our qualities and efforts. But unfortunately, we find there at this present age, and since long time from history, many centuries, there is a contradiction between Islam and Muslims, and that is the reason that Muslims are being leader of the world. They are follower and much behind their contemporary nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalim, for your excellent lecture. I learned a lot from your lecture. Please allow me to give some comments. Probably it is those comments already in your mind, and you are going to upgrade your paper.
Sure.
But then let me share with you a few things. Probably it could be beneficial. The first issue here, your discussion is basically based on facts in general, and no effective observation from your side, except there was a slide where you mentioned United Nations phase. You mentioned yes. Now, yes, in what sense, how, what, why, and where?
3 points after that is saying why it failed.
So you did not elaborate much, so we need that elaboration on that observation. The second issue here is the gap that we are really eager to know, the gap between the master plan of the SDG and the reality. Okay? It is not highlighted actually. And it would be better if you can come up with the ratio, the percentage of achievement, and the focused sectors. That could be better. And the next issue here is the SDGs, one of the focused sector is the green environment. So green environment is not highlighted here. They are focusing on that too much now. Now, next year, how far that there are statistics of that observation is not highlighted here, that how far the Islamic finance can contribute to SDGs, and especially by this fund of zakat, wakaf, tabarruk, and so on. Do you have any facts on that? And it could be better if you could have done some sort of meta-analysis by region, okay? The Southeast Asia, this Africa, and all that. So it could be better actually. Now, my final observation, I will agree with Professor Lahi, that from my little study where I have observed our wakaf, zakat, wakaf, and tabarruk size per annum globally is more than $1 trillion. More than $1 trillion. Now, the issue here, why we could not have our own SDC? Okay? And then if we can have that, I think it is going to be result-oriented, and it will bring more the better results. Now, for information, this United Nations UNDP is is really trying to attract the Muslim countries, the rich Muslim countries where they have the zakat and wakaf fund. Don't attract the government to insert the particular fund to their goal, SDGs goal. So we have the facts actually. So this is unfortunate, and then I just want to share with you recently. I was approached by the United Nations, the UNDP, New York based. So they wanted me to come up with an idea how the zakat, wakaf, and tabarrut can help them. So I impliedly, this gentle I declined it. That is this that I'm going to advocate to take the funds, Islamic fund, to help those kind of activities. Not all activities of SDGs are within the Sharia spirit, that the homosexual, those and all sort of things. So that's my conclusion here. If Dr. Karim could come up with the idea in your paper that an alternative model of SDG based on the Sharia fund as per the slide also highlighted the concept. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
I must thank Dr. Karim for his beautiful presentation, very comprehensive, and he highlighted many things in here. Although very usual, should have some flaws or something that were highlighted before me. I will not go into that. I can only suggest that are these goals, SDGs, all are comply? Do they comply with the Sharia? One thing we have to study, because some things I think that conflicts with the Sharia within the 17 goals. So another thing is that the United Nations failed to maintain peace in the world. Do you think that it would be able to achieve these goals, whatever their intention? Is it sincere or I'm not going into I'm not questioning their sincerity, but would you think that they would be able to achieve these goals where they failed to maintain peace and other things in the world? Especially in this era, we can see lots of wars and some things going on around us, and many people that doubt about the United Nations success, and also whether they will be able to achieve these things. Another question is that do you think that Islamic finance have a role to achieve these goals within the principles of the Maqasid of Sharia? And also, do you think that whatever wealth we have in Islamic finance, for example, from Zakah fund, from Awqaf funds, from other contributions, do you think that by investing these funds we can help achieve these goals? That does not contribute to the Sharia. These are my questions. And again, I thank you very much for giving your efforts to make such a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. for your presentation. I have just two comments about regarding your study. The first one is related to the last slide, if you can show it. Do you think that this is your recommendation? The fact that you gather the goals, some goals will resolve better. Again? If you gather some goals like poverty and hunger in the same goal, and
other example, the second. Is this, in your opinion, is this your solution or your recommendation to better achieve the goal? Because this, you said, as it is said, there is overlaps, reduced goals, better.
You want to answer now?
After. This is my main remark, as you said for the last slide. The second one is maybe there are other goals, okay, or maybe there is a problem. It needs more time to achieve these goals, not just to you conclude that there are overlaps or reduced goals. It's not. I think it's not. It's not comprehensive as a recommendation. The second comment about Islamic perspective regarding this topic. I think that in your presentation it is a superficial focus on the link or what Islamic finance can add or can contribute to this issue. That's all. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. جزاكم الله خير. Thank you very much, Dr. Karim, for the effort that you have made to bring this topic, though it is, now circulated in many quarters in Islam, Islamic institutions like ISDB and others. To me, it was not clear. First remark, it was not clear what are you after? What is your objective? Is it just to make it reduced or to assess them? From which angle you are going to assess them? From Islamic perspective or from what has been achieved on real achievement? And what is the relationship between this and the MDGs? I think to my understanding, MDGs, they were a failure. Are we not going to have the same failure? And I think our, role as intellectuals is more than just making a reduction or what, but looking into behind the reality. Why these initiatives? What are you to do? What effort? The history of the United Nations, the history of the World Bank, the history of IMF, and the record, the real record, that will be really the most important for us. And also, we have to look into, even as some brothers they have mentioned about this, we have to be very, very careful about some of these SDGs, like gender equality. The gender, why? Why to replace it instead of using sex? Okay. So there are, for instance, if you go to the document that was produced after the Peking conference, Women's Conference in 1995, it has been mentioned this word 233 times. And why they are emphasizing on it? It has been created or mentioned since the 70s. So we have, I think, so many things that we need to look into. So for me, from a research point of view, is to focus on small thing. If we pick up only a one goal and assess it from various aspects, for instance, particular poverty itself, is it? Now the hot issue is, of course, the climate change or the green and so on. That's another, needs lectures. And also the inequality, disparity between the wealth distribution. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that it is a local. No, it is a global. And equality everywhere. And inequality even between the imbalances between the trade deficit and why US is having.
It is global, but what I mentioned is they were talking about the solution. It has a global solution. I said no, it has a local solution.
Okay, yeah. So it is a global phenomenon. It has many dimensions. It has many impacts.
Agreed.
Oh yes. From the Islamic perspective, I think even the Islamic finance, principles or Islamic finance resources, we need to be very careful. I think we need to develop an agenda that is from the reality of the Muslim societies, according to the resources, according to the abilities. Of course, we are not isolated from the world, but we have to be very careful with such agendas. And many thanks for the effort. But for me to focus is much better than to be too general.
شكرا للمتابعة. هل سؤال أو تعليق؟
شكرا جزيلا، لا يوجد أي سؤال. شكرا.
أترك المجال للدكتور كريم أنسر. تفضل.
Thank you, Professor. I'm just waiting to where people have missed the point.
It was failures.
Anyway, I agree with what Dr. Islahi has said. We have been far behind. And as we are discussing it, we are discussing the points developed by the United Nations. United Nations is not an independent institution, it belongs to us. It's not necessary that everything has to be done by a particular country. Our own organization which we have created has totally miserably failed, that is OIC. It's not able to take any stand, it's not able to do anything. At least the United Nations is able to come forward in places where, as you mentioned, where there is no conflict with their agendas. But we are not able to do anything. So, unfortunately, we have nothing but to blame ourselves. And perhaps our own governments for not giving free hands to and not concentrating on those issues. Dr. Maso, my focus was why it is a litigation, why it is not a straightforward approach where things could have been done, the primary issues could have been focused. And the results of their, it is only 3 years now, we have 2030 to achieve. I cannot be critical now. And then, like when the government of India was formed under Modi, people praised him at the early stage. Some people overpraised even Obama, and even he was given the Peace Award because of his promises, which he did not deliver. So I cannot evaluate them at this stage. At least 10 years time, we can have some picture of how far they have gone. And to have read about achievement in different areas like South Asia, Southeast Asia, what impact it would have in even Malaysia, Indonesia, the SDG from MDG. But if I am to include all of these, then it's already, the number of slides was, which after skipping, it was 104 slides. That's why I skipped the target. So the whole focus of the paper is why I feel it is a litigation approach. That's the whole thing which I was trying to expose. Can UN achieve, Dr. Farooq's question? This is what I said. I was trying to prove that if it needs to succeed, it has to also focus on the 3 things which I mentioned, especially today I mentioned 2 things which is gun control. When you're having conflicts or wars, the whole goes gets to zero. Things are in front of you. So first focus on which is the primary reason for creating the United Nations, and that's not what in any of the things where they mention how they are going to do that. So in order to achieve, I think if they focus on that, then it can be 100% achievable. Otherwise, I mean, as the MDG or SDG, the whole focus is on the developing countries. They have to put effort. They have to spend money. It's not the developed countries where it is the requirement from the developing countries. And when little bit pressure was there on the developed countries, the United States walked out to the Paris Agreement. But nobody can do anything. You see? Can Islamic finance? I put it that the debt, they have to address the debt issue. Where the debt is piling up especially the most poorest, they are more indebted. And it keeps compounding. The United Nations, the SDG is not offering anything to get them out of this. There's no clear cut, it's mutual, you can agree, try to get favorable, but still, Islamic finance is interest free. It's not profit free. You're not going to give away something for free. Otherwise, it's a clear cut, sadaqah. It's not Islamic finance in that sense. Islamic banking. So, obviously, Islamic finance can play a role in creating a better support mechanism.
It's not necessarily Islamic finance.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. That's why I didn't mention the word. I said that.
It's not.
Yeah. Coming to question of overlaps, that was just an additional thing. The main point which I was focusing is they should get gun control, which is destroying nations. New Zealand was one of the, it's not in that sense, but it's still lives were lost. Netherlands, we had 70 plus people killed a few years back. Just like that. So, and the Boko Haram is there. ISI, how did they get weaponized? Nobody is able to tell who were weaponizing them. Because there is no traceability. Coming to the overlaps, I think yes, if we are able to reduce the 69 targets, it's a huge target. MDG, to me, it was more a practical approach. They could have, there was an article where the person who wrote this, who was involved with the MDG, he recommended just 10, to add 2 more goals, to make it 10 and then to achieve things. But then the negotiations started, objections and non-objections, it came to 17 goals. And I think the same point goes for Dr. Ahmed. My focus was basically on these 3 very focused things. I first highlighted one of the points and what are the merits and demerits, gender equality, which you questioned. I put gender rights could have been a better approach. Every gender has its.
Gender itself, but it's problematic. The word itself, the word itself, it's a problematic. From the Islamic point of view.
Gender equality.
Why they have differences? Before the 70s, they were using sex according to biological differences between men and women.
Yeah, that's gender.
No.
It is a big area, but it has
change words, change.
the whole
With gender rights, if we are putting it in a gender rights, then I think it should be more appropriate, closer to what we want, rather than gender equality as it is. Did I miss any question? I don't know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.